I still remember that night like it happened yesterday. The rain poured so hard it blurred the city lights outside our windows. Inside, my father's voice was calm. Almost gentle. "Stella, your brother will take over the company. You don't need it." I laughed silently. Not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. All my years, my sacrifices, my blood, sweat, and tears, reduced to a shrug and a smile. They thought I'd break. They thought I'd beg. They had no idea, the storm had already started, quietly, inside me. Hi. I'm Stella Carter. I'm 36, born and raised in Denver, Colorado. My family owned Carter & Sons Construction. Yes, sons, not daughters. I thought loyalty meant blood. I thought hard work meant respect. Turns out, I was just invisible until someone else needed to fail. Before we go further, tell me where you're watching from. If you've ever been betrayed by the people you trusted most, this story will hit close to home. Subscribe if you love true revenge stories, because the ending here? You won't see it coming. I was 22 when Dad had his stroke. NYU scholarship. Gone. Dreams? Set aside. Life? Rewritten. I walked into the office for the first time alone, and the smell of dust, old coffee, and anxiety hit me like a wall. The company was bleeding money. Clients were threatening to leave. Payroll was overdue. I didn't flinch. I just sat at the desk. Opened the ledger. Took a deep breath. And said, quietly, "I'll fix this." Nathan, my brother, stayed in Los Angeles chasing his career. Bartending, networking, living the easy life. Mom would call and sigh, "He's just finding his path." I didn't complain. I didn't tell anyone I felt invisible. I just worked. Late nights, early mornings, weekends. I saved the company. Every deal I closed. Every client I convinced to stay. Every dollar I tracked. I did it all. When Dad recovered, the company thrived again. And I thought, maybe, finally, I'll get recognition. But then Nathan returned. Slick hair. Expensive suit. Fake charm. Suddenly, I was just helping out. Every decision I made became his success. Every risk I took was his vision. Mom smiled at him. Dad patted him on the shoulder. And me? I smiled, quietly. Months later, the will was read. I wasn't mentioned. Not even a token. Nathan gets everything. The house. The company. The legacy. Mom and Dad look at me, expecting grief. I don't cry. I don't yell. I just nod. Because I've learned something important. The most dangerous person in the room is the one no one sees coming. I pack my desk quietly. Delete my contacts. Walk out without a goodbye. The air outside hits me, fresh, sharp, liberating. For the first time, I have nothing. No company. No family. No identity. Just silence. And in that silence, I start planning. Not with rage, not with fire, but with patience. Because revenge doesn't need to be loud. It only needs time. I didn't contact a single client. I didn't pick up a single phone. I didn't attend a single board meeting. And yet, things began to crumble. It started small. Missed deadlines. Suppliers growing impatient. At first, Nathan called meetings, trying to appear confident. "We've got this," he'd say, voice too loud, too certain. But the cracks were there, subtle, almost invisible. He didn't know how to read the reports. He didn't know which clients demanded personal attention. And most importantly, he didn't know the relationships I'd built. I watched it all from a distance. Not with joy. Not with glee. Just observation. The first email arrived that made me smile inside. A longtime client, one I had personally negotiated with for years, wrote, "We're reconsidering our contracts. We've always worked closely with Stella, We're not sure about Nathan. The dominoes had begun to fall. I spent my days quietly, moving through my own life. Apartment, small freelance projects, late-night walks through the city, coffee in hand, watching rain streak across the window panes. Meanwhile, the empire I built was slowly unraveling. And my family had no idea. Mom called, trembling. "Stella. He's struggling. The contractors, the permits, everything's a mess. Can you help?" I paused. I thought about it. Then I said, softly, almost like a sigh, "I'm sorry, Mom. I have my own life now." Silence. She didn't speak for a long time. That call, it was the turning point. I realized they had underestimated the true value of what I had done. They had assumed loyalty meant I would always be there. But loyalty is not ownership. And ownership cannot be replaced by nepotism. Late nights became my favorite moments. I'd walk past our old office buildings, the ones I helped raise from derelict lots, and see Nathan struggling with paperwork, arguing with clients, sweat on his brow. I didn't intervene. I didn't comfort. I didn't gloat. I just observed. A week later, the first major client left. Not a warning. Not a phone call. Just gone. And with that departure, others began to notice. Suppliers started calling Nathan at odd hours. "We've got deadlines we can't meet. Payments are late." And Nathan tried to keep a confident face, but cracks were showing. He didn't know how to fix it. He didn't know the company had been running because of me, not because of him. Meanwhile, I planned my own life. Small joys. Evening classes. Quiet dinners. Reading in the park. All the things I had ignored for years while carrying a family's empire. And the irony? I felt free. Finally free. And karma was already at work. I even saw the family in social gatherings, trying to show off Nathan's success. Guests complimented him. Patented him as a rising star. They had no idea the walls were crumbling behind closed doors. And the first real sign of panic came in the form of an email from one of the company's major investors. "We need assurances that the company is still stable. Stella has left. We are concerned." Nathan called Dad, voice rising. "We can fix this. We just need Stella back." Dad's response, weak, uncertain. Mom's voice shook over the phone. And in that moment, I knew. The seeds of their downfall had already been planted. I didn't celebrate. I didn't interfere. I just smiled quietly to myself, a calm, almost imperceptible smile. Because this was not about vengeance in the traditional sense. It was about patience. It was about letting life, and their arrogance, do the work. And as the weeks passed, the company's reputation began to falter. Deadlines slipped. Payments delayed. Complaints rose. Even loyal employees whispered behind Nathan's back, murmuring. She was the real heart of this company. Without Stella, nothing works. And that's when I realized, my revenge didn't need me at all. It only needed their own hubris. Weeks passed, and the cracks grew wider. Nathan tried to act confident. He held meetings with suppliers and clients, but the air was thick with tension. Every question he couldn't answer, every promise he couldn't keep, widened the gulf between appearances and reality. One Monday morning, I received an unexpected email, the first official lawsuit notice. A subcontractor I had personally worked with for years was suing the company for unpaid invoices. I smiled faintly. Not because I was cruel, but because I had warned them. I had told Dad months ago. If you ignore contracts and deadlines, someone will take legal action. Don't blame me when it happens. Of course, no one had listened. Nathan called me, desperation in his voice. "Stella, can you help? Just give me a call, please. This could ruin us." I didn't answer. The next few weeks were a blur of chaos for them. Clients began pulling contracts, citing mismanagement. Investors threatened to withdraw funding, worried the company couldn't survive without the person who truly ran it. Suppliers demanded immediate payments, and the legal notices stacked on the desk like warning signs nobody wanted to read. And yet, I remained silent. Calm. Observant. I watched them at family dinners over the phone, through snippets of calls, through rumors. Mom's voice shook as she whispered to a friend. I don't know how this happened, it was all supposed to be smooth. He's failing. Dad, once the unshakable patriarch, looked smaller. His presence no longer commanded respect, it commanded pity. And Nathan, oh, Nathan. The boy who laughed at my late nights and my dedication, now ran around like a man whose house of cards had collapsed. The lawsuits intensified. One after another, contractors and employees filed claims for unpaid wages and broken agreements. The media began to pick up on the story, headlines like, Denver's Carter and Sons in financial chaos, can the empire survive? I could almost hear the whispers in the office corridors, murmurs that finally reached the ears of those who once dismissed me. She was the one keeping everything together. Without her, this is inevitable. And then came the investor meeting, Nathan's biggest failure yet. He walked into the boardroom, suit pressed, tie straight, face pale. The investors, once loyal, were icy. Their questions were sharp, their patience thin. You've lost major contracts. Payroll is late. Why should we continue to fund this company? Nathan tried to smile. Tried to reassure them. Tried to bluff his way through the storm. It didn't work. One by one, the investors left the room, shaking their heads. The boardroom felt smaller, suffocating. And I sat quietly at home, remembering how I once ran those very meetings flawlessly. Even the employees started to turn. A few of my long-term staff called me privately. We don't know how Nathan is surviving. He doesn't know our clients. He doesn't know the processes. We miss you. I nodded silently to myself. No words were necessary. The truth was already unfolding. The first major project of the year, a high-rise in downtown Denver, began to fail spectacularly. Delays. Permits missing. Safety violations. Nathan tried to fix it, but panic has a way of making even the smallest mistakes monumental. I watched it all, from the outside, quietly. The empire my family had taken for granted, the one I had saved, was collapsing without me. And I realized something profound. I didn't need to act. I didn't need to plot. The truth and their arrogance were enough. Late one night, I finally allowed myself a small smile. It wasn't happiness, exactly. It wasn't triumph. It was peace. Because karma was at work. Slow. Methodical. Inevitable. And it would continue. Until everyone who had dismissed me, betrayed me, underestimated me, felt the weight of their own actions. By now, the cracks had grown into gaping chasms. Nathan was running around like a man trapped in quicksand. The harder he tried to fight, the deeper he sank. Investors had pulled out. Projects were failing. And employees, the very people who had once respected him out of obligation, were whispering in corners, refusing to follow orders, quietly undermining every decision. The first news article came on a Monday morning. Carter and Sons, from Denver's pride to financial chaos. I didn't need to read it. I'd already watched the pieces fall into place. Mom called in a panic. Stella, they're writing about the company. About Nathan. About us. What do we do? I paused. I could feel the storm rolling in from miles away. I don't know, Mom. Maybe, face the truth? Her silence was deafening. The next few weeks were a cascade of public exposure. Contractors went public about delayed payments and mismanagement. Employees leaked internal memos showing repeated failures and poor planning. Investors wrote statements questioning the competence of the leadership. It wasn't just financial ruin. It was humiliation. For my father, who prided himself on appearing unshakable. For my mother, who always smiled like nothing could touch her family. And for Nathan, the boy who laughed at my late nights, at my sacrifices, now reduced to a trembling figure in every meeting, every interview, every boardroom call. I remember seeing Nathan on TV once, local news coverage. His face was pale. His tie crooked. The anchor's words slicing through the screen. Carter and Sons Construction faces unprecedented financial and legal troubles. Experts say the company may never recover without key leadership. I didn't smile outwardly. I didn't need to. I felt a quiet sense of justice. Because this wasn't my doing. It was their choices. Their arrogance. Their underestimation of the person who had actually saved the company in the first place. Even family friends were whispering behind closed doors. I always thought Stella was smart, but she never got the credit she deserved. Nathan's just not ready. He's not enough. And the irony? I had built the empire. I had nurtured it. I had carried it through storms. And now, I got to watch it unravel without lifting a finger. The final blow came in the form of a major lawsuit, one I had predicted months ago. A contractor filed a claim for millions. Another investor demanded immediate repayment or liquidation. Nathan tried to negotiate, to plead, to hold the pieces together, and failed spectacularly. Mom cried on the phone. Dad refused to answer calls. I walked through my apartment, sipping tea, watching the rain smear across the city streets, just like that night years ago, when my father had declared me unnecessary. It all felt poetic. The empire that had once seemed untouchable, built by generations of Carters, was collapsing. And karma? Karma had been patient. Slow, methodical, unavoidable. I didn't gloat. I didn't brag. I didn't call anyone to say, "I told you so." I just observed. Watched the fall of arrogance and betrayal. And in that quiet, cinematic moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. Sometimes the most satisfying revenge is the one that doesn't need you at all. Months had passed since the lawsuits, the media coverage, and the investor withdrawals. Nathan was a shadow of the boy who had once mocked me. The empire that Dad and Mom had once boasted about was gone. The offices emptied. Projects frozen. Suppliers walked away. Employees had left to greener pastures, whispering stories of the daughter who actually ran the company. My family had been humbled in a way I never could have done directly. And I had done nothing. I had rebuilt my own life quietly. Small apartment, rain-streaked windows. Evening classes I had always dreamed of taking. Freelance projects I actually enjoyed. Long walks through the city, feeling the freedom of my own choices. I didn't need revenge to taste like victory. I didn't need to humiliate anyone directly. I simply let life take its course. The most beautiful thing about it all? I was no longer bound to their definitions of worth. I was no longer invisible. One night, I walked past the old construction sites, the buildings I had poured my life into. Now half finished, some abandoned, some taken over by new developers. And I felt a strange mix of melancholy and satisfaction. It wasn't about the money, or the fame, or the legacy. It was about the truth. The truth that I had carried the company. The truth that my loyalty and work had been real. And the truth that those who betrayed me had finally faced the consequences of their choices. I called my parents once, just to hear their voices. Mom's trembled. Dad's was quiet, almost hollow. Nathan didn't answer. I didn't leave a message. I didn't need to. Sometimes, revenge is a silent thing. Sometimes, the most devastating blow is patience, calm observation, and letting life deliver justice. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat by the window. The rain fell again, streaking the glass like tears or confetti. And in that moment, I realized I had found peace. I didn't destroy them. I didn't even touch them. I simply stepped away and watched life do it for me. And that was more satisfying than I could have ever imagined. If you've ever felt underestimated, betrayed, or invisible, remember this story. Patience, observation, and understanding the real power in your hands can change everything. Comment below where you're watching from. Share this story with someone who's faced betrayal. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because sometimes, the quiet ones are the most powerful.